I'd like to show you how to do this bias stem or border. Very fun to do, but has some unique principles that I hope you'll understand better. The principle of a bias strip is the grain. If I am to pull on the grain with the grain, either vertical or diagonal, it doesn't stretch. But if I'm to pull at a 45-degree angle, there's a lot of give in that fabric. And I'll show you how to use that. Okay, I'm going to line my fabric along the lines of my cutting board. Then I'm going to use on my ruler the 45-degree line and line it up along one edge. Then this cut will be 45 degrees. Now, that's not a very big piece to work with, but as I come along, it will get wider. Now I want to cut double the width of the finished stem or border plus 2 seam allowances. So I'm going to line it up along that 45-degree angle and cut. And then I'll keep cutting until I have enough pieces. Now, if I'm using the bias for stem, I would just mark it on the fabric and use it the same way I'm going to use it here as a little border around this inner part of the quilt, and I've pinned it down so it won't move. Then I've taken my bias and I folded it wrong sides together and pressed it, and I've tried really hard to not pull it. I'm going to put the raw edges along the edge of this quilt, and then I'm going to sew an exact width around that edge. If it's a 1/4 inch, great. If it's smaller than a 1/4 inch, that's fine, just so it's consistent. Now this is where we got the double the width of your stem, because it doubles on itself, plus double your seam allowance. And so once that's sewn, it will fold back. And that's how I get my width. Now we've attached it to the edge here. This is why you want your seam to be exactly the same all the way around, because that will make a difference on the width. Now because it's bias, it will stretch back, and I can press it and it will stay there. It has that stretch in it because it's on the bias. Now if I've run out of bias and I need to seam it, okay, when I'm aligning these to piece together, they are cut on a 45-degree angle, and then you lay them at a 90-degree angle, and the edges meet at a 1/4 inch from the edge. That's where they meet when you align them, and then you sew on that so that with a sewing stitch comes to 1/4 inch with a 1/4 inch seam. Then when you open it up, the edges are straight. This one I aligned just at the top and not at the 1/4 inch down, and this is what you get. See, it just doesn't match. You're missing a lot here, and that doesn't work when you fold it together. Try to do this process. Now next, to finish, we're going to pull the bias back and press it, and we'll blind stitch that folded edge. And by pulling it over, we've covered up all our raw edges. And we're going to take a single thread, knot it at the end, come up from the back, and just catch the folded edge. Just right on the edge. Then where it came up, you're going to go down into the outside fabric and move forward, come up on the very edge. The reason it's called blind stitch is because I'm coming straight across and down, just a little bit of that thread shows. That's why it's called blind stitch. It's an applique stitch. Come right up on the edge. Now how close your stitches are depends on your purpose. This is really just to hold it. It's not going to be washed or take a lot of wear. If this was an applique stitch, I would make them much closer together, like that. Smaller than a 1/4 inch. And you can do that on this too if you want that look. And when it's finished, it just looks great. Now on this little quilt, I had raw edges where the flowers cover, but it looks so professional and really easy to do, and I hope you enjoyed this demonstration.